Hi guys, so I recently saw a video from J2Sense about the RAM crisis. Let me just try and bring it up. Yep, so this is a video by J2Sense talking about the RAM crisis. Maybe I can shift myself to the right. And in this video, basically he was talking about going either buying used or maybe even like upgrading from an older like AM4 CPU to Intel, probably the 1200 series at 12900K, probably because you're still staying on DDR4 and because DDR4 is cheaper. So in general, what he's recommending is to stay on DDR4 and just, well, stay on CPUs that are still using the DDR4 technology and don't go to DDR5 because DDR5 is super expensive. So I also, so inspired by that video, I wanted to check out what our used market is like. So let me bring myself back to the left. And so in Singapore, so because I'm doing videos for Singapore, so in Singapore, our used PC parts platform, the main platform is Carousell. I myself also do a lot of buying and selling on Carousell. So I think it's a pretty legitimate platform. Obviously, you got to be aware of scams. You got to be aware of buying faulty parts and getting ghosted after that. You have to do your own due diligence when transacting. Better to transact face to face so you can inspect the component before you pay him or her in cash and everything. Okay, so let's talk about getting used parts on Carousell. First, we provide some context like how are new RAM prices. New RAM prices are absolutely insane. Example, this is our list from Dynacore. So this is Dynacore's price list, which is a shop in Simlim. So this is an example of the prices of RAM in a physical PC hardware shop. Okay, let's scroll down. So their RAM prices are here. And it is insane. Let me try and maybe zoom in a bit, drag it out a bit. Okay, so if you can see, a 32 gigabyte stick of DDR5 RAM, which is only 6000 CL36, is 429 Singapore dollars. 429. 429 Singapore dollars back like 2 months ago would have been able to buy you the RAM, the motherboard, the CPU, assuming you're going for budget CPU. So it can buy you the whole like motherboard, RAM, and CPU. Assuming you're going for like, let's say 7500F with a budget, maybe a B650 motherboard and 32 gigabytes of 6000 CL36. Back then, 2 months ago or 3 months ago, would have cost about 120-ish, 150 Singapore dollars. So for 429, you can gotten the whole CPU, motherboard, and RAM 2 months back. Now you are paying $430 just for 2 sticks of 32 gigabyte DDR5. So brand new RAM is absolutely expensive. So what are some alternatives? Obviously, you can actually buy from AliExpress. I used to get cheap RAM from AliExpress, especially DDR4 RAM. DDR5 RAM, I didn't really rely on AliExpress because there's no warranty, or even if there's warranty, it's very hard to claim because it's from China. So whenever I'm buying DDR5 RAM, I try to buy locally that has a local warranty. But DDR4 RAM, especially the cheap ones for my cheaper AM4 builds, I'm okay with buying from AliExpress. Back then, like before the Ramaggedon and all the RAM price increase, about 16 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, let's say from Crucial, you could get it for around 30 to 50 Singapore dollars. Now, well, just take a look. Let's say we have some HyperX, so Kingston RAM. So this is push kill. So this 8 gigabyte is already costing about 70 Singapore dollars. Let's just take 16 gigabyte. Maybe one stick is 135. And this is a push skill, is I don't know what brand it is, and you don't even know the cache latency of it. So maybe 16 gigabyte of 2-piece, 140 Singapore dollars. 32 gigabyte DDR4 RAM would have cost someone about 250 Singapore dollars. So if we go and look at Kingston HyperX, again, let's say DDR4, let's get 8 gigabyte of 2 sticks. This. So 70 Singapore dollars for a single stick of 8 gigabyte. So for 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte, which will make it 16 gigabyte, already cost about 140 to 150 Singapore dollars. Then if you check Amazon, let's say DDR4 RAM, yeah, DDR4 RAM, this is pretty fast. Do we have some normal speeds here. Okay, so this is 16 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz CL18 memory, which is pretty decent. Would cost about 160 to 170 Singapore dollars. This is also DDR4 RAM. It's also about that price, 16 gigabyte, 170 plus. So the alternative would be to go to Carousel and just look for DDR4 RAM. Let's see whether we can find comparable 16 gigabyte. So here we have 16 gigabyte, but for $60. But you have to take note of the speed. It doesn't say in his description, right? But if you read this, here you can see the model number is 22666. The 2666, so that means that's the megahertz. So it's 2666 megahertz, which is pretty slow. So we don't really want this kind of slow RAM, even though it's one stick. It can work, but it's really slow. So let's look for normal gaming RAM. So this one is 2133 megahertz. Even though at $50, it seems really cheap, but it is pretty slow. This is only 8 gigabyte. Only one image. Can we zoom in? I can't zoom in further. Yeah, so I don't know whether each stick is 4 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte. Or yeah, I don't know whether the total is 8 gigabyte. Can we have others? This one, 16 gigabyte, 2400. Is there anything that is decent? Okay, this looks decent. So 3200 megahertz at 16 gigabyte for 2 sticks. A guy selling it for CL16 selling for $80. So this is a lot cheaper than if you were to buy brand new from AliExpress, because AliExpress would have cost us where is it? Around here would have cost us 140 Singapore dollars. This guy is selling for 80 Singapore dollars. So you save about 60 Singapore dollars by going used. And obviously there is a danger of getting used. That means you might get faulty parts. But RAM, it's very rare for RAM to be faulty. And obviously when you're buying face-to-face, try and transact face-to-face with the seller and maybe get some verbal guarantees from the guy like, hey bro, can I bring it home and test it? And if it doesn't work, can I return it to you for a refund? If the guy is like pretty chill, he's probably be like, yeah, sure, you can test it. Because it's pretty rare for RAM to fail. But RAM can be faulty. So yeah, so you gotta a little bit of hit and miss there. So another seller here, so let me close this. Another seller here for 3000 megahertz, 16 gigabyte. So he doesn't have the cache latency. Maybe it's on the sticks here. You can zoom in. I think it's CL16. It's pretty small. So 3000 megahertz CL16, which is not bad. So for 70 Singapore dollars, that's not too bad, right? It's about half price of what you would pay for if you buy brand new. Other ways of buying buying used would be to buy an entire set. So for example, this is also another listing on Carousell. A guy selling here is old Ryzen 3600, which is a pretty old CPU with an old B450M, pretty old motherboard, but it works with 32 gigabytes of DDR4 3200 megahertz RAM. Everything all in for just 200 Singapore dollars. So essentially for 32 gigabyte, right? If you are buying brand new, 32 gigabyte, if you see here, it really costs 245 Singapore dollars. So you are paying less, like for $50, 50 Singapore dollars less to get the RAM plus a CPU and a motherboard. Even though you might not really want the CPU might be slow. Maybe you already have a faster CPU. Maybe you have a 5600 or you have a 5700 X3D, 5800 X3D, 1500X, whichever. Yeah, maybe you already have a faster CPU, and obviously the motherboard is good. You need the motherboard. B450M obviously can support faster CPUs as long as you update the BIOS and flash the BIOS. But the RAM is what's valuable, right? So it's like everything all in for just 200. So you can also go for pre-builts as well. So let's say we go for Okay, let's talk about brand new prebuilds first. If you're buying like on the high end, so let's say you're going for a brand new build, you don't want to buy used, you're going for like 9800 X3D, 9950 X3D, and so on. The other option is to buy brand new prebuilds. So one of my, so not say fellow customers, but one of my viewers actually text me, like he's asking me whether I can match this prebuild price from Invader PC, which is backed by Dynacore. So the same shop that I show you the price list early in the video, but I couldn't. So this is what I found. This is the price of all the parts. If I were to get the price list, get their prices quoted directly from the price list of Dynacore in the Simlim website. Just for the RAM alone, it costs 429 Singapore dollars, and the 2 TB of NVMe SSD, it has risen in price as well to about 350 Singapore dollars. This used to cost like 200 Singapore dollars. Now it has gone up by almost 100%. I think gone up for like 60-70% in price, while RAM has like tripled in price for sure. So this pre-build is actually still at a pretty affordable price. You can see that everything here, I've tried to match everything here on this list to my Excel spreadsheet here. I'm blocking it, so let me move away. So I've tried to match everything here in this list to my Excel spreadsheet here. So 9800 X3D with the Asus TUF B850E Wi-Fi, 6000 Crucial DDR5 Pro 6000 CL36, the 32 gigabytes of RAM. This is 32 gigabytes. So let me write down. So this 32 gigabyte based on the price list. Then 2 TB of Crucial T500 Pro, AIO from Corsair Nautilus, the Corsair Nautilus 360 AIO, Asus Prime 5080, 850 watt power supply from Corsair, and the Corsair Frame 4000D, that is the case. So everything I followed this, except for the fans, because these fans are actually included by default in the motherboard and with the case. So yeah, and the price I get from the price list is about 4,000 Singapore dollars. But if you buy it pre-built from Invader PC, which is also Dynacore, so it's the same company that's backing it, you save about almost 700 to 800 Singapore dollars. So it's only 3,255. So by buying pre-built, obviously pre-builts, there are some which are better value and some which are worse value. So in order to find which are better and worse value, you have to do your homework and compare like the individual price of these parts to whatever you can find in Simlim or whatever you can find online. So not all pre-builts are a good deal. Do your own due diligence, whether you're buying from Aftershock, Invader, Mensa PC, and so on and so forth. But going brand new pre-builds is a way to save money. That's if you want to go high end, you want the warranty, you're buying brand new parts. But if you are trying to shop on a budget, the other way is to get pre-builds from Carousell. So let's say I just type gaming PC on Carousell, and there should be a lot of people selling their own pre-built PCs. So this is a 1590 PC that's probably super expensive, but like this is not too bad. This is, I think, a brand new pre-built. It's not used. Okay, so there's a company selling brand new pre-builts. So you can probably check out their prices. It'll probably be decent. Like all these parts with how much RAM? 16 gigabyte of RAM for 1,200. I don't know how comparable it is, but I would say these like budget PCs are pretty affordable. Like about 600 for a 3600 with a 1070. How much RAM do you get with it? Yeah, you gotta look at their description. I think this is a refurbished one. Yeah, refurbished. 16 gigabyte of RAM, 3600. Yeah, this one it's decent. It can pass off as a gaming PC. Like there are some cheaper ones here, gaming PC for sale. Like this is decent, 16 gigabyte of RAM, a very old CPU, a Ryzen 1700, but you can actually upgrade the CPU. Like you can actually get cheap CPUs online. Probably you can get a 3600 or 5600 for less than 100 Singapore dollars, and you can upgrade this. 1080 is still pretty viable as a gaming PC. So yeah, so getting used pre-builts yeah, they actually use pre-builts for cheap selling around, so you can look for deals used. So in this Ramaggedon, my solution for this is to really go and scout the used markets for used RAM if you're building a new PC, or if you want to like save the hassle, you can just buy an entire used pre-built from somebody else. Obviously, you have to scout the prices of those parts, individual parts by itself. Like for example, if you are going for a 2080 Ti used PC, it's probably not worth 1,005 because a 2080 Ti used is only like worth about 300 Singapore dollars, something like that. And a 5600G and so on. Do you see that this one? I don't think it has a GPU installed, but yeah, so something like this $300. Where's that one that I found there? Like this $300 Ryzen 7 1700. Yeah, you can actually research the price about it. So look at the individual parts, like 16 GB of RAM. How much does it cost on the used market? GTX 1080. How much does it cost on the used markets? And compare the sum of its individual parts, and to see whether this entire bundle is a good value or not. So do your due diligence. And anyway, so that's it for this video. So solution is go pre-built or go used to not spend too much on RAM. All right, and we'll see you guys in the next video.